You look so
to my
gorgeous
office.
right now.
She's in her car, but
Thank
she
you
looks,
so much.
I mean, she is a model,
Oh,
but
yeah, you are a model.
she's just stunning.
I got a little spiffy for you guys. Okay, I came
Yes.
prepared. I'm
Yeah.
ready.
We love it. She's got a blowout and everything.
No, you look
Oh
amazing.
yes.
Well, we're so excited to talk to you. You're like we said, you're a model. I actually started in the modeling industry when I was 19. I don't
Oh
do it
my
anymore.
gosh.
But so I have some experience, not
Yeah.
probably nearly as much as you do, but I'm so curious, like how your journey in the modeling industry started, how long you've been doing this, and since you've joined, how you've seen it evolve over time, because it's an my own personal experience with it. It's an interesting industry to be in.
I want to hear your thoughts too. But yeah, so basically, because I feel like there's some stories behind that little intro. But similarly to you, I got scouted when I was 18. So that's how I started. I got scouted by Ford, moved to New York. I thought I was being pranked genuinely because at the time, plus size modeling or curve models or whatever you want to call it was not really a big mainstream thing quite yet. You had maybe like a couple clients out there like Torrid and Lane Bryant. It wasn't a very like mainstream exciting
Mhm.
thing. So I thought I was being pranked for sure. I was like, there's no way that Ford Models is interested in seeing me. Like, LOL, something is going to go awry here. But then I flew out to New York and met with them, and that was a wrap. Moved to New York for a little bit, then moved to Miami, then moved to LA and signed with Wilhelmina Models. Then I moved over to LA Models. I was their first curve or
Oh,
print
I
or
was
plus size model on their
LA
print board.
models.
Hey, when were you there?
I was there until honestly until I was on their board for a while after I stopped
Yeah.
modeling, and I finally was like, "Hey guy, like I don't really do this anymore. You could take me off your
You're
board."
like, I don't like this that much. Oh my
But I was
gosh.
at
We
LA
probably
Models too.
had similar agents then.
Yeah, probably. But you were saying that you were the first plus size model on their women's board.
Yes, on their print board.
That
So,
is
because they've always had
amazing.
curve girls on the runway, but yeah. So it was really great. Actually, that was my only positive modeling agency experience. I have
Oh,
stories for days on the rest of them,
I
wow.
really
but
love
but
them.
yes,
Wow.
they were great. So,
So,
former LA Models agents, we love you. Shout
We
out.
love you.
yay. I'm like as if I know them. I'm like, good for you, LA
You're
models.
like, hey, good for you.
Well, my question
But yes,
is,
so yes,
oh, well, you were saying, like curve model, plus size model, like all these things.
yeah,
And I feel like I've heard that that can be even like a size 8 in like the
yes.
fashion industry. And so do you find that term like problematic at this point? Or what's your thoughts on plus size, saying somebody's plus size?
So, kind of in ties with the question about how have things changed. So when I first started, anything from a size 8 and up was considered a plus size model. But the reality was is that there really wasn't any space for you unless you were a size 14 to 16, because that was really
Mm.
what the samples fit. So when I started at like a size 12 probably, and I'm probably like a 14, 16 jean now. And every agent that I went to was basically like, you either need to lose weight or gain weight. So there was no really space for anybody in between. But yes, people from 8 and up were considered plus size. And then anything from 0 to 4 really was straight size. There was really no room. Size 6 was just like non existent.
Wow.
So yes, incredibly problematic. And, for me, labels are problematic in general,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
but it was just the range of what plus size really was too was so confusing for so many people. It's definitely changed quite a bit. The industry is much more inclusive now, although I will say I don't know if it comes from a genuine place of wanting to be inclusive. I think
Yeah, or being
if
yeah.
you're like keeping an eye on things, that it's really a money grab, because brands are starting to realize like, oh, people aren't going to support us unless we are inclusive and including all sizes and etc.
Yeah. Well, even a lot
Definitely a
of
little
a
shady boots.
lot of brands don't have anything over a 12. And I think the average woman in America is like a 14, 16.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how insane that most brands don't even have that size.
Also, like what was crazy to me that you were just saying, it's like that in between, which is also where a lot of like normal healthy bodies are is
Yeah.
there's no representation for that. And now I've seen it on TikTok, like mid-sized
Yeah.
bodies.
Mhm.
But like it's crazy to me that that's just not even a market that they're trying to hit. It's either, these very, very thin girls or, on the opposite end of the spectrum, but there's no room for anything in
Like a
between.
mid.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
I'm like
mid-size.
very solidly mid, and I'm like, I don't really see anybody out
Me too, girl.
there.
Listen.
Yeah.
But not only that, but I think the other issue too is the fact that there's not a lot of shapes necessarily represented. It's a very
Yes.
Yeah.
narrow shape, especially, I was actually talking to someone on TikTok earlier today, speaking of TikTok, about the fact that when you go online to purchase something, that everyone who is in the plus size category looks very hourglass and has a very flat stomach, and how incredibly problematic that is, because shapes of different dress sizes, so say you're like a size 16 or 18, you're not necessarily going to be shaped exactly like the person that you're seeing on the site either.
Mhm.
So it definitely, and so you get the item in and you're like, wow, this looks nothing like it's supposed to look on me. So
Right.
I think there's a lot of lack of representation in that way also, because again, we're still kind of considered like mannequins in a way,
Yeah.
Mhm.
to show off the clothes. But, the lack of representation has always been an issue. And I feel like it's just different now. And although we had a lot more of kind of a narrow idea of sizing, I guess like 10 years ago when I started, which is crazy to think about, I still feel like there is such a lack of kind of size inclusivity in regards to representation.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But yeah, it is definitely so, so odd that the average size woman is a size 16, but we rarely ever really see that kind of representation
And
anywhere.
and then, like you were saying,
So,
the shape and like what a 16 looks like
yes,
Yeah.
when one person, another person, and how clothes fit on, like the size is one thing, but also the shape is a whole other thing as well. And I love
yeah,
that you brought up that point.
And the other thing that
definitely.
I've noticed is like bodies have become a trend. So like when we grew up, because we're all about the same age, it was very
Yeah,
much the heroin chic, quote unquote, like
yes.
00 or less bone sticking out.
We suffered, man.
Oh my God. I
The
remember when,
magazine covers,
yes, it was just
Yes.
insane. And then now it's very much like this Instagram, like tiny waist, like big
craziness.
hips, like all these things that are like not, humans aren't shaped that way,
Yes,
But
no question.
do you think that there is a future, maybe now that like we're talking about this more, where there's more
Yeah.
inclusivity and like maybe we'll start to get to a place where body shapes or weight or size isn't so heavily emphasized?
So I hope so. And that's an amazing thought. I feel like a lot of people are starting to catch on to that now, because you're so right. Like, bodies are always trending. And I
Mm-hmm.
always talk about the fact that it's society selling us something new, because at the end of the day, it really is all rooted in capitalism, not to get like
Yeah.
too deep, but
Yeah.
the reality is that they're always selling us something new. And so, especially in regards to women, our value, unfortunately, within the system is the way that we look. So they're
Mm-hmm.
constantly selling us a new way to look. When we were growing up, it was the heroin chic, what diet can I get on to lose 10 to 20 pounds in a couple weeks and be
Yeah, in
the
a
thinnest I
week.
ever could be. And the magazine covers that were portraying all these celebrities to be like, oh, is she pregnant? Wow, so and so looks so
Oh my
horrible and
gosh.
fat and whatever. Portraying fatness as like the worst thing that could possibly happen to you, which we
Right.
know it is not.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that we will get there at some point, but I think people really need to start cluing in and kind of getting away from this constant focus on our bodies. And Natalie, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, and the fact that even in the way that the body positive movement has swung,
Yes.
yet again, we're now really focusing on what everyone looks like, and every post has to be about what my body looks like today, and a long caption justifying the way that we look and that our existence is valid and worthy, essentially. And I think once we step away from that and start to feel valid just existing and not feeling the need to justify it in any way, that hopefully we will get past that.
I've heard a lot about, and I think this is what you're talking about, the like body, like being body neutral, like, or the body
Yes.
neutrality movement. I've seen it on TikTok where I see everything I get information from,
Yes.
which I really love because I do think, yeah, that body positive movement, I feel like maybe just got out of context at one point, and then now it's like,
Yes.
right? It's like not really serving the point that it was supposed to anymore. Where I love the
Yes.
body neutral, where it's like, this is just a body
I'm just a body.
and it doesn't define
Yeah.
me. It doesn't make me better or less than. It doesn't, it's just the body that I'm in.
100%. It's just a skin sack that we are experiencing life in, and that is it. But no, I totally agree with you that the body positivity movement has just become something that it wasn't intended on being. It was originally created as a safe space for marginalized people and bodies, and to seek representation as well as work against systemic oppression and marginalization that, marginalized and oppressed people face every single day. That say thin white women don't experience every single day. And it's now been turned into, since the phrase that was coined was body positivity, everyone's like, oh, it's about being positive about my body. So every day I'm going to post positive things about my body. But the reality is that it did start off as a social movement to seek representation for people. So I totally agree with you. For me, body neutrality has just resonated with me so much more because through therapy, which I recommend for everyone,
Oh, we
I
do
realized
too.
that it was therapy. I realized that the more that I focused on talking about my body constantly, it was actually turning into something negative, and that it wasn't affecting me in the positive way that I was hoping it would, as well as my eating disorder recovery. And so I kind of just dropped off of it and was like, this is me. I'm bad AF. You either like it or you don't. And I don't need to constantly justify my existence and the way that I look.
Right. And that's kind of what you were saying before, of this whole thing where it's like you have to write this long ass caption, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for what?
For what? To like,
Yes.
make an excuse, like, here I am. Here's why I'm here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We don't have to justify our existence and the way that we look. It's just, we're perfect the way that it is. And not only that though, but the other thing that body positivity and what it's turned into is continue to perpetuate is that our value lies within the way that we look.
Yeah.
And the language like, your body is beautiful no matter what, and my cellulite is beautiful and blah blah blah, continues to insinuate that we have to be beautiful in some way in order to hold value in our society.
Yes.
And eventually that will start to kind of click for people, because it, again, not to get too like Joe Rogan-y today, but like it is all rooted in capitalism, because they will continue to sell us all kinds of things in order to continue to perpetuate that the way that we look holds value. So I've found that in the way that brands have started marketing to us, it's all about self-care and it's all about self-love. And it's all about inclusivity in their marketing. And that's why I said earlier, I don't think it's coming from a super, genuine place. Because they've just found a new way to sell us things, essentially. So
yeah,
the joys.
the joy. Well, you seem incredibly like self-reflective, and like you've thought a lot about this. And I'm very curious, like how your self-acceptance journey has been for you throughout your whole life, like from your childhood and how it's changed in your teenagehood and in your early 20s and where you're at now, because it just feels like you have such a good perspective on your body and your your self-worth. And I'm just curious how that's evolved over time for you.
Oh man. So obviously, as we know, growing up in the early 2000s was rough.
Yeah.
I so desperately wanted to be thin and blonde and blue-eyed. I prayed every day. That's what I so desperately wanted, and obviously that was, could not be achieved. And especially taking in all of the diet culture and all of the thinspo essentially during that time was really difficult for me, because I've always been a bigger body person. I've always been like small, fat, chubby, the whole nine. And so I never felt like I was ever accepted. And it
Mm.
wasn't about necessarily fitting in. It was really just wanting to like walk through life like everyone else was. And it just felt like
Yeah.
that was never going to be possible. And so, you know, growing up in the early 2000s too, going to clothing stores was basically impossible. I had to always shop at Sears in the, you know, boys section because nothing else fit me. Like going to Limited Too was like a far-fetched dream. And so that really shaped me as I started to get older.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought I was beautiful, never thought I was attractive, and which again doesn't matter now that I'm older. But
Yeah.
then it was really hard growing up because you're just like, man, it's just never going to be me. So as I continued to get older, again, that's why it was so shocking to be scouted at 18, because I just never felt like I was ever systemically pretty. I was just like,
Mm.
well, this is just kind of what it is. Especially growing up in the Midwest too. I grew up in St. Louis, and it's a very like cookie cutter, live, laugh, love girl. And I was just never that. Um, so when I got scouted, we moved into a whole different realm of insecurities and body insecurities. I was thrown into the fashion world where clients would pick me apart from head to toe, where my agents would pick me apart from head to toe. And the reality was too, is that things are so different now in the modeling industry. You have a voice of your own with social media. Your agents and clients probably fear you and what you're going to say, because now you actually have the power
Yeah.
to kind of talk back. But then it was like, if you don't listen to your agents and if you don't listen to your clients, you're done. And if you have a bad experience with someone, or you stand up for yourself, maybe even if you're in the right, your career is over. It's really in the hands of other people. So going into that was really difficult because I had already grown up with all of these really gnarly body image issues, hating the way that I looked, always wanting to be thin. And Ford, I don't know if you remember this, but Ford ended up closing down their lifestyle and commercial division and going bankrupt for a little bit. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And I remember they gave us like 2 weeks notice. They were like, hey, we're sending you your checks and we're dropping you. Have a good one. So I moved back home for a little bit. Yeah. And then went to Miami and went to LA. In between that, a manager had reached out to me and she said to me, hey, you know, you have an amazing look. I think you could be a supermodel if you just lost 60 pounds and got
Oh
to a
my
37-inch
God.
hip.
Oh my
And
God.
at the time,
What?
I know, at the time, I was in such a bad place in my life. I was unfortunately in an emotionally and physically abusive relationship. And I was like, well, I just need to do this. Like, I need to do what it takes to be successful. And that's also the problem of being like an overachiever kid. You're like, oh, well, I got this, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So going from, you know, disordered eating, diet culture kind of shaping me as a child, now I was like, oh, well, I have the tools to lose all this weight. Like, I'm set. I got this. So I ended up completely starving myself, developing multiple eating disorders, destroying my mental health. I'm dealing still with health consequences of these years. Couldn't get down to a 35-inch hip no matter how thin I got, no matter how much I starved myself. And I ended up kind of giving up things with this agent and moving to LA and signing with Wilhelmina. And then they said, hey, we need you to gain weight in order to be a
Oh
plus
my
size model,
gosh.
because unfortunately you're too big to be a straight size model, but you're also too small to be plus size. And I was like, okay, like I need to just do what it takes.
Yeah.
So then I ended up gaining weight, finding success there, but you know, still feeling so deeply insecure with myself and the way that I looked and the way that I presented to people and clients. And you know, there's also this super unhealthy, as you know, competition a lot of times with, you know, booking jobs,
Yeah.
and yet you just feel like you're constantly having to, like, I don't even know, just work yourself up to be the best. And it's so unbelievably difficult. So that wasn't necessarily helpful for my mental either. But
Yeah.
eventually I ended up leaving the print world because I had some just really awful experiences with photographers and clients. And it was pretty horrendous. And I got to the point where I didn't feel safe with my agents and I didn't feel like I was being protected. So I just one day was like, I need to take a step back. And at this point, I had started growing a following on social media, So I was able to, and I'm unbelievably grateful for that because I feel like that saved me. So through that, I started going to a really amazing therapist, working through all of my eating disorders and disordered eating, and kind of realizing that like I needed to just fall back in love with myself, and that life was so short. And if I didn't start now, when was I going to start?
Yeah.
So through therapy, and also like just being really stubborn with myself in the best way. Ooh,
Wait. She's
can you guys
back.
hear me?
Yeah.
So sorry, I don't know what happened. That was really weird. But just being hard with myself in the best way and learning how.
Shoot.
I do not know what's happening. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can.
Your video cuts
Okay.
in and out,
I am
but
so
it's
sorry. I
back.
don't know what is going on. So I'm here. But setting harsh boundaries with myself also was the biggest act of self-love that I ever could have given myself. And that's when I really was able to like fall in love with my body again. But not only fall in love with my body, just fall in love with myself. Because
Yeah.
again, I feel like talking about falling in love with the way that you look is just so conditional, because you just never know what will happen. And you know, I gained a ton of weight this year. I had a really unbelievably difficult year, as we all did, like hello. And my self-love can't be conditional on just loving my body. It really has to be about
Yes.
loving yourself to the core. So
Yeah.
that was kind of my journey. Therapy was just integral. And it's so funny because I know a lot of self-love content creators have, you know, booklets that they sell, they have, you know, programs that they sell. My program is, I'm like, go to a therapist. I like, this is what I
Just
recommend
get to
you.
a therapist.
Please see a certified professional, because that I am not. I'm just here to talk about my personal experience, but like, the best thing that you could do is see a certified professional. And not only that, but there are so many amazing therapists that work with people who have body image issues, eating disorders, body dysmorphic disorder, etc. It's just the best thing that you can do for yourself.
It
So that was
completely
my
is.
journey.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's so.
And oh, go ahead, babe. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's like, as you're describing your story, it's like your whole life, were basically told, like, you in your body isn't okay. Like,
Yes.
limited to, like, I can't, just because of how you are, it's like, oh, I can't participate in this because of the way that I look. And so I can see why now you're also like, why the fuck am I still doing this? Why am I still saying, here's
Yeah.
my body and here's a big caption and Y and XYZ. And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of us are just now starting to be like, wait, what? Like, we've all been
This
conditioned.
is a little off.
Yeah, something's off here. And like how you're
Yeah.
saying with the whole like self love, but it's like only if we love our body. Like, it doesn't make sense. And another thing that I
Yeah.
woke up to just this past year really is this really toxic diet culture that, like,
And
Oh my
even the
God.
hot girl
It's everywhere.
summer thing.
yeah,
I
hot
don't
girl
I don't
summer, like,
yeah.
It's sneaky.
It's
it's
It's sneaky.
sneaky.
Okay. The way that they really do, they are good at marketing the diets to us. No, the hot girl summer thing is, I love it and I hate it, because I feel like people 100% equate it to, hey, like, I need to get my summer body in check. And this pressure, and I used to do it too, where it was like this pressure to make sure that I was at the right weight and looked right, for summer, to be able
Right.
to present in a certain way to people. And it's unbelievably toxic. And the way that they have woven, and TikTok for me, I don't know about you guys, TikTok for me was like, whoa. I feel like we're on Tumblr in 2014.
Yes,
I'm
it
calling
totally feels
911.
like
This is
that.
not okay. I'm calling your mom. Hello. No. Like, I will not let you do this to me. And it is a little bit frightening. There is a just ton of what would be considered thinspo, scary, diet information. And this is the whole thing too. It's like so easy to have access to something like TikTok. And I am constantly thinking about these girls that are so young, going on here and seeing Rebecca talk about her What I Eat in a Day, where she eats a bowl of oatmeal and some cucumber with some nothing but whatever the bagel seasoning from Trader Joe's. Like, I'm like, babe, like, I don't know about you, but no. And getting all of this horrendous nutrition and diet advice from social media. So now I just feel like we're having to protect this new up and coming group of people
Yeah.
from the same diet culture ideologies and painful body image ideologies that we went through. I
Yeah.
just feel like it's continuing to be so unbelievably cyclical.
And it like you were saying, it's so sneaky. And I think that, you know, when we grew up, it was like really focused on like losing 20 pounds in 2 days if you just like drink lemonade with
Yeah.
cayenne pepper in it or whatever. And
Yeah.
now it's very hidden in like health. Like,
Yes,
oh,
it's masked
Yes.
as healthy.
yes, quote
Mhm.
unquote, eat
Yes.
clean, quote unquote, you know, keto,
Yes.
all these different trends that are they're actually diets,
Mhm.
you know?
Yes. They
I
are
feel like it's
100%
very
diets.
veiled. And I think
Yeah.
people,
And
especially young girls, they can't discern. I can
Yeah.
barely discern.
no, I could not discern. Girl, I was in it to win it. And growing up, my family, God love them, amazing people, but we're constantly on whatever diet, Atkins, low carb, South Beach, Weight Watchers, all of it. And so, yes, now it is all very like intertwined between food fear. And I also recently had to go through another bout of kind of like cluing in on food fear because I am gluten intolerant now. I can't eat dairy, I can't eat eggs, and so that limits my food choices. But through that, I was also seeing all of these food influencers talk about how all these other things are scary and bad. And I was like, oh no, I can't eat that also. I must stay away from it. And I had this realization, Dana, okay, that this was also diet culture sneaking back in again. And it really is sneaky. They know how to market it to you. And I follow so many amazing nutritionists now that talk about the fact that there is no bad food. There is no bad food. You have to take away the stigma from food and be free from the shackles of diet culture because there is no bad food. The whole clean eating thing, all of it, goodbye. It's just is not the case.
Goodbye.
Throw it out.
So,
Yeah.
but yes,
I love that. I
but
have
I
no, sorry, I have another question for you.
yes,
This is a little off topic, but I want to make sure I get it in. Um,
mhm,
because we're talking a lot about body positivity and body image. And I feel like as a woman, obviously, I've grown up and I've seen my friends and girlfriends and the way they've talked about their bodies and their own personal struggles.
yeah,
I think for me as somebody, I've never really, that hasn't been my journey. I have a lot of journeys. I have a lot of mental health, a lot of anxiety. I've had my own
me too, girl.
you know what I mean? I have all of that, but body image was one thing I never struggled with. And I feel like I've never
Yeah.
known how to be an ally for a friend, how to talk about it. Are positive affirmations, telling them they're beautiful. Obviously I do that, but is that enough or is there another way that I can just be a better ally for a friend who's speaking negatively about her body or who I just know struggles with that?
First of all, I love this question, and you are amazing for even asking this. So snaps to you,
Well, I just
because
want
I feel like
I
a
don't,
lot of
I
people
want
don't.
to just make my friends feel beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally get that because I'm the same way to my friends, even when I'm struggling with whatever. My favorite question to ask people is, when they're going through body image issues or self-love issues is, how can I be there for you in the way that you need me to be? Like
Mm.
what can I do to be there for you in the way that you need? Because a lot of times, for me, I have this panic about being a burden on people. So when people say, hey, like I'm here for you, I'm like, cool, that's great. I'm never going to reach out to you about anything because I'm
Yeah.
panicked internally.
Me
But,
too.
but
Yeah.
the thought is nice. Like, I'm glad that you're there for me. But the question, how best can I be there for you? Like, what do you need from me? Is the best question that you can ask because it's so easy for us to just say, this is really what I'm eating right now, or I need you to come eat with me, or I need you to go through my pantry with me, or I just need to sit with someone and talk with them.
Mhm.
There's just so many different ways to do that. And so that is my favorite question to ask people. And that's how my friends and I do it now is, what is the best way for me to be there for you right now? Like, what are you really needing right now?
Yeah.
So, and the fact that you even want to be an ally and be helpful to your friends is like the best step. Like that's really all that's needed. So,
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
love that. I love that response because it really does fit for not just like body image in particular, but in so many other ways. Like a friend who's going through depression, and whatever that
yeah,
question is like, how can I be there for you? As opposed to like, I'm here for you, and then like putting so much pressure on them to be like, hey, so
Yes.
today is the day I need you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like.
Yeah, hey, just checking in. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Well, I think
Very,
that,
very difficult. So yeah.
yeah, and I think that everything that we've talked about today, just like how we can move forward into a society that's less focused on bodies. And I was talking to Corinne about this when we were kind of coming up with some questions to ask you, because like my entire life was like riddled with body image problems.
Yes.
I was a double D by the time I was 13. So like my
Oh,
body was always up for discussion. My
yeah.
my dad would ask me how much I weighed, like all this shit.
Oh,
So yeah,
yes.
it's just
That's
like
always a treat.
it's always, yeah, what size? Oh, you could have whatever. So it's
You
just
could lose a few pounds.
right.
Or you even the like, oh, you look like you've lost some weight. You look so much better.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh God. Yeah. So I
Like,
look
what
back
does
at
that
all.
even mean?
I
Yeah.
know.
Oh, it's the worst.
So I'm hoping that with this type of conversation and just continuing these types of
Yeah.
conversations, that like my dream would be to have a daughter that grew up like Corinne, who like didn't
Yes.
have
Oh,
people that were like, well, oh, you look, because it's like,
yeah.
what a blessing. What a blessing, you
No
know?
question. And I think what we also have to realize is that it really starts with us, because this kind of discussion is very systemic. You
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't blame my parents for their internalized fat phobia, because I know that that was pushed onto them, and
Right.
that's how they grew up systemically and subconsciously. They don't even realize that they're being fat phobic, and they don't even realize what they're saying is so harmful, because it's so ingrained in their subconscious. They think that that is just normal. So I think the fact that we're even talking about this is so unbelievably positive. And the reality is the best thing you can do is just not comment on people's bodies, on your own
Mm,
body, on your friend's body, on the person that walked by's body. You know, as someone who's always been the plus size friend,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that there is so much harm in having a thin friend that's like, oh my God, I feel so fat today.
Mm-hmm.
I look so fat today. Does this make me look fat? Because it continues to perpetuate that being fat is the worst thing that they could be. That that's
yeah.
their greatest fear,
Yeah.
is to look like me in something. And they may not think that. They may think, oh, well, Dana's beautiful. She's a model, whatever. Or, you know, so and so is beautiful. I would never think of them that way. But when you are the fat friend in the room with them, that just is like a bullet to your heart. It is the worst
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the more that we get away, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to say, yeah, really just breaking this cycle of these conversations we've been having and breaking the cycle of, whatever our parents have passed down to us. Like, that's really our job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Watching our
no
languaging
question.
and also keeping an eye out for these really, you know,
Sneaky,
veiled,
sneaky.
sneaky things where you're like, yeah, you're reading
Yes,
a magazine and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I wonder if I should drink celery juice every morning. And then you're like,
oh
wait,
my
what the
God.
fuck? Yeah.
Literally, that has no science backing it. And that for me is where I really kind of get to when it comes to debunking a lot of these diet things, and even having discussion with people on social media, especially TikTok, which is just crazy, is having discussions about the fact that there's just simply no science around this, and therefore it is not fact. So no, I'm going to skip the celery juice every morning and not suffer. Thank you. So, and also my goal is not necessarily to drink just celery juice and be, you know, as thin as a rail. Like I'm okay the way that I am. But
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
well,
That
Dana, it gives
part.
me such comfort that you're on TikTok because my sisters spend, they're 12 and 13. They spend 95%
oh,
of their lives on TikTok. So
oh
just
man,
to know that someone like you is out there and doing the work and having these conversations, it gives me a lot of hope for them.
Yeah.
And thank you for doing what you're doing. It really is, it's changing people's lives. And so it was such an honor to talk to you.
Yes. Oh, we're so glad we
such
got to
a
talk
pleasure,
about
you
this.
guys.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. So I
Of course, and
appreciate you
we're going to
both.
link to everything you're doing, your TikTok, your Instagram, and all the other amazing things you
Yay.
do.
Amazing.
Yay.
I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for this amazing conversation, and thank you for using your platform to speak on this.
Of
Oh, thank
course.
you. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a great rest of your
Yay.
day.
Okay.
Yes, thank you guys.
Bye.